Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video from today onwards, there's a link if you are a UK energy user to get £50 if you switch to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Excuse me. We are joined by 10th Man, I've completely lost my track due to a frog in my throat, Arwin, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Hello.
Morning.
Good morning, good morning. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Nonsense.
You don't see it.
It varies from time to time.
Varies.
Can be measured.
Hold on, I win every day. No, something that's physical does not vary. If it's physical and geometric, it doesn't have any variation. Rocks don't grow. I'm clicking buttons, hoping that it'll be a nice, smooth, easy one, and Arwin's always here to make sure that I've got to actually address something the panel's got to say. Thank you, Arwin.
Yeah, I
know it doesn't vary.
Throw a wrench in the works first thing.
Yeah, indeed. Shout out to Jamal24, who says, great show yesterday. Well, thank you very much. Hopefully the same today.
I guess that's what they used to think first. Now they just don't think about it anymore too much.
Nobody claims the horizon's Earth curve, are we?
Well, that's what they say right now. But I bet that in the back of their mind, they're still looking back at NASA telling them, no, that's definitely what you have to say. And then they're just like, okay, we're not going there for a while because there's like mines in between that road. So,
Well, they had a bash, right? They spent 12 months hand-waving the Black Swan. And then after just not coming and addressing it or hand-waving it in comments and saying it's debunked without giving anything to actually debunk it, they then went on to start reasserting that they could see horizons that are physical from balloons and such like. It's like, hello? You've not actually addressed the fact that your own side's telling us how non-physical this horizon is. But what, you just want to go back to, look at this horizon bending. That's fascinating. It's not physical and geometric anymore, though. It's been debunked.
Right. Or maybe they just have to call it the alleged physical horizon.
Alleged? It's supposed to be the thing that proves we're on a sphere, Arwin. It's pretty fundamental to their claim of spheredom.
Allegedly, yes.
Not allegedly. Factually. They've got calculators that tell you how much of it blocks boats and buildings and stuff in the distance. It's supposed to be the proof of Earth curve, i.e. the proof we're on a sphere.
Allegedly. No, yeah, that's fine.
Not allegedly. For certain, that's definitely what they think. They definitely... It comes to something when even on the flat Earth side, we have to say, do they still really believe they're on a sphere? Is that really what they're claiming? Yeah, it is, yeah. That's definitely what they're claiming. Unless anybody wants to correct me, am I wrong that 99% of the Western world are under this misapprehension that they're on a sphere and that the horizon's a physical Earth curve that boats go over? Am I wrong about that? Have I woken up in a different Narnia today?
Well, maybe they all woke up and realized that even though they still kind of have the same habits to fall into, that, yeah, at some point it's going to sink in, like all this defending of this globe, it's not leading anywhere. So they might just give it up, still be like ballers, still defend their dreams and the things they like to think about, but then their foundation is just like, yeah, that's all kind of like done with, really.
So ballers without a ball.
Yes.
Well,
they still
they
got
would
the
become
dream.
they would become the out. It's weird because you've got a direct comparison that sits in the same paradigm, which is a bit odd, but you'll understand what I mean when I say that Scientology is a similar thing to where heliocentrism could end up. In other words, it's got a small pocket of people that are very fundamentalist about it and deep believers, but ultimately the rest of the world knows the obvious and observable flat nature. Now, you can use that as a direct comparison because Scientology is based in heliocentrism, as much as people might laugh at it going, oh, these idiots. Oh, really? Well, their paradigm isn't actually that much detached from heliocentrism in general. It's very much based on heliocentrism, Scientology. And like I say, the fact that you've got a few of those believers, once the world accepts the obvious and observable nature, which is how these things tend to go, eventually the ridicule and the violent opposition towards the obvious and observable will just be declared as obvious and observable by average Joe. They'll go, yeah, well, obviously it was always flat. We always knew that. It was obvious. After telling everybody that you're an idiot and ridiculing it, which is where we are now. But given enough time, you'll end up with a small pocket of people that still believe in heliocentrism, like you do with Scientology, even though they're pretty much the same thing, believe it or not.
I would say
think that the Scientology backstory in the face of heliocentrism is really not that weird when you really think about it.
No, the fact that they've got mathematical certainties in aliens and things out there, and out there being the distances that give them these, longer timelines to have these evolutions, all of the whole paradigm, the whole narrative, the whole thing is based in heliocentrism. It's not a stretch. I mean, it's weird that it's ridiculed. It might be like that's how heliocentrism eventually gets subcategorized off into the nonsense world of only people who are technically Scientologists. It won't be left as a heliocentric paradigm. Maybe it'll get resurfaced 300 years from now, with it switch back again. Like they said in 1984, the stars can be close or far. It's just up to our mathematicians. If we want to change it tomorrow, we will. So when they might change it back again, right? We fight for this great battle of it's obviously flat, what a load of nonsense. And when people observe it as flat and accept it as flat, then a few hundred years later, they just change the paradigm back to sphere. And everyone says, obviously we knew it was a sphere. Look at the horizon. It's blocking stuff.
Right. All they need is just unleashing another moon landing on a completely unsuspecting public.
Yeah,
No, moon's not going to work. They want to go bigger now. It's got to be Mars.
That would not be now. Guess what? Because now there is flat Earth going around in their social media. But like in several generations, they could just start it all over again.
Neil, you're talking through him.
Big.
Hold on, Neil.
Mars
Just wait your turn.
Put it somewhere.
We missed half of what Arwin said because you talked through it all, Neil. Go first, Neil. You go. No one will interrupt you. Then Arwin can repeat, hopefully, what he just said. I can pick up the sentiment.
Sorry, Arwin. A little delay with my car thing. Anyway, they're planning something big. Jupiter, Mars. They know the moon's not going to cut it no more. They have to do some theatrical thing in one of these other planets.
What you think using another light? I mean, they're doing that anyway.
That sort of thing is all damage control for still trying to maintain the spell that is currently going. What I'm saying is that the spell is not as old as you all think it is. That it has been in the making for an extremely long time, has been worked on for over millennia, probably overall, one way or the other. But the actual unleashing of the spell on the world, making it real, as it were, that's not that long ago, I think. It really isn't. It's probably 20th century. So now it's all out here, right? It's all out there. There's flat Earth talk. There's all kinds of doubts with NASA and all that. But if that all just changes again, kind of forget about it, several generations later, the people will not, they will know in the back of their mind, like, oh yeah, there was this thing about flat Earth globe argument, but they won't even know what that means at that point. And then government can just come out like, yeah, we're going to the moon. We're going to go to the moon and do it all exactly as we always plan to do. And then the people will just be like, whoa, this is incredible. So the Globers were right after all. They'll all fall for it all over again very easily, I think. But it'll take this period to kind of end and round itself out in our generations to fulfill what we're doing, basically, before they can engage again.
Well, we're not. I don't see it as me having to fulfill anything, personally. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like sitting here and debating the subject. It's very close to my heart, and I like making YouTube videos and running live shows and all that good stuff. But I don't feel obliged to fulfill some sort of destiny. I don't have a quota of people to convert, and frankly, I couldn't give a crap if they don't care. Or,
But that is it. That is it. That is the destiny. It is very fulfilling, isn't it? You've always said that doing flat Earth is very fulfilling. There's all this room, all this mystery. It is fulfilling. That is what I meant, not a specific prophecy like destiny or anything that kind of fulfilling, but just doing what you do, letting it all play out naturally. That's what I meant.
yeah, I mean, it's nice being on the winning side. And the fact that I've appreciated and you've appreciated the obvious and observable nature of reality as flat doesn't fuss me if someone else doesn't, is what I'm trying to get across. I mean, someone sent me a video the other day, I can't remember who it was that sent it me to credit them, but it was a typical ball-believing mainstream fundy. But they started out their video before all the little proofsies, which I won't cover because they're just tired old dogs of proofsies. But nevertheless, this woman basically explained that according to the statistics she'd looked at, up to 50% of people either think the world's flat or doubt the globe. And it's like, I'd stop paying attention to this sort of stuff. I don't watch TV and I don't pay attention to mainstream news or the propaganda that people get. And therefore, I don't know, I haven't got a clue and I don't really care. But when it was suddenly presented to me in that manner, it's like, this is a globie talking about how stupid we are with rubbishy globe proofsies, but saying, according to the stats I've looked at, half the people think world's flat. And you're like, okay, that's certainly been hinted at in terms of other stats that people had shown me when gamers had asked their audience to give the opinion on the same subject matter, and they came back even more in favour of flat Earth on some occasions. But like you say, hearing those sorts of things, I don't suddenly rejoice. You know, if next man realises what I realise, does that actually benefit me? Not rhetorical. You let me know. How does it benefit me or you, Owen? So next man that comes to your show, for example, we have exactly this on the panel. So father of a stolen child tells you that he's now under the he's lacking the misapprehension that he had in prior years that the Earth was a sphere, and he now realises because of the black swan. How does that benefit you? I mean, it's great for my show, and I can give benefits in that regard. But how does it benefit you, Owen?
Well, it provides an average of more people out there that you might on average bump into, that'll allow you to be able to realize that and talk about it on that level. So it takes away from the isolation.
Okay, I can see that as a definite benefit. No, I get that. If the paradigm overall changes, then you don't go out into society and find that you're being ridiculed just because you say, yeah, the whole globe idea of space and stuff is just nonsense. When it comes up, I'm not going to give an example where it comes up naturally. I'm just going to say, if it came up naturally, the general consensus would have a different worldview and therefore wouldn't necessarily ridicule you. Therefore, it would be easier in society, you know, and maybe the comments would be a bit less brutal. I don't know, various other fringe benefits along the same line. So, yeah, I can see that.
But hold on, that is if like the entire mainstream idea would go to that. I don't think that'll ever happen, really. What I'm saying is that just having more flat people realizing that the Earth may actually be flat and they're all being fooled gives us all an opportunity to grow and then share with others that same process so that you won't be alone. I'm not saying that it will inevitably lead to flat Earth being declassified and being taken on by some kind of mainstream media authority, right? I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think so.
Well, the two aren't the same thing, though. So what you're saying is, I don't think the propaganda, which is definitely on the side of the sphere, will ever change and suddenly the news will declare it's flat. Well, no. But we actually do live in a consensus reality, as much as that might frustrate us when we ask for science and empirical evidence and demonstrations in physical reality. We do still live in a consensus reality. That would be to say that the people around you accept what everyone else thinks is the correct way of being or the way of the world or whatever it is you're talking about. Now, that was made clear to me by Steve McRae when I went on a show with Anthony and Chris Monk. It's like they made it absolutely plain. No, we are living in a consensus reality. If consensus says X, Y, Z, then that's true. Now, as much as that's frustrating, in the same example, if the consensus, that would be the majority of people, don't think we're on a sphere anymore, then that is the consensus reality. It's just as simple as that.
Well, the consensus reality from the other side on the current topic is conspiracy, conspiratards. So they've painted it as a picture of a bunch of Looney Tunes believing in conspiracies. That's the flat Earth paintbrush they put on us at the moment.
Well, again, you're confusing the two things. You're confusing the consensus, the majority of people, because you personally give me examples of where they don't ridicule you when you go out and lay out some of these things. Yeah, you do also have examples where they do, or at least behave defensively towards it. But I'm saying there's a big distinct difference between when you say or they behave, you're talking about the propaganda and how it indoctrinates people. Well, again,
Right.
along a similar vein, right? There's certain statistics in terms of the amount of people who are detaching themselves from mainstream TV. Now, yeah, they're still wrapped up in all the online streaming services, but it's a step in the right direction when you consider the amount of news narratives and propaganda that they've then relinquished as a direct result of merely relinquishing mainstream television. You know, and I realise that will just morph into a different stream of propaganda. It's already halfway there. But nevertheless, there's going to be a certain amount of people that aren't subject to the massive amount of propaganda, and therefore that isn't what you could consider the consensus view. It used to be the case that everyone's totally indoctrinated by what comes through the telly box, and therefore if the telly box says something, that is just, you might as well assume it to be a consensus opinion, because everyone's going to have seen it and therefore adhere to it. But I don't think it's the case now. I don't think it's the case that just because it's said in propaganda terms that this world's a sphere, for example, that everyone accepts that and makes it the consensus reality. No, go on.
I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing from that point of view. I was going back to the original back and forth you and Arwin had. They, whoever they are, and of course they are everybody who is the consensus as well, is when I talk to people and they just say, wow, I never thought about that. That tells me they haven't been listening to the propaganda. Then when I talk to some people and they say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. I go, well, where'd you get that word? And why'd you use that? Why do you label it conspiracy theory? So now they have been listening to the propaganda. So I'm just saying the side that wants to keep the consensus as a sphere is labeling us as conspiratards. In fact, a guy came on your show the other day and says, oh, that's just conspiratards. But he's been listening to the propaganda instead of looking at the facts, instead of looking at reality.
Yeah, that was his last retreat, though, after being pummeled about a sky vacuum and claiming there was pictures
Right.
being taken from space. Anyway, should we move on? That was only the first housekeeping question, nearly 20 minutes into the live show. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
You mean 15-degree drift of the Earth if it was spinning?
15-degree lockstep movement.
And no drift. That's not nothing would drift.
No, everything drift. It just seems like it doesn't.
Not bad, not bad. No, not everything should drift. You wouldn't drift if you were standing on the ground. You'd be observing the drift of things not on the ground. That's what Coriolis is, regardless of your assertion that things moving together somehow has a drift. It wouldn't.
No, it's just too slow. You just don't see it.
That's fascinating.
It's too
That's
slow.
not Coriolis, though. So, as much as this is fascinating, Coriolis effect is you observing things drift as you turn underneath them. That's what Coriolis is, and it's claimed the globe has Coriolis effect.
So how much would a drone...
I knew it! He didn't have anywhere
drift
to
in
go
an
out
hour
to turn
time?
into a question for me. Ha! Got you, Owen. That's the end of that. Question for me, I see.
I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. I have a scattergun next question. Right. So how much would a drone drift in an hour then?
You having me on? 15 degrees.
How much is that?
15 degrees is 15 degrees.
Okay, it's gonna 15 degrees in relation to what?
In relation to its position relative to you spinning underneath it. So you will rotate at a rate of 15 degrees per hour underneath, say, a drone. So the drone would take off the roundabout. And if the roundabout's moving at 15 degrees an hour, then the drone is hovering above it. An hour later, you're 15 degrees further away from it on the rotational path of that roundabout. Likewise, Earth, that's claimed to be turning at 15 degrees an hour, would have the same effect. The drone would take off from the rotating surface of Earth, and then an hour later you'd be 15 degrees away from it. Now that could manifest in hundreds of miles. It depends where you are. But ultimately, regardless of where you are, you still have 15 degrees an hour drift that's claimed to turn underneath the drone as it launches into the air because the Earth's claimed to have Coriolis effect. You seeing it drift away at that 15 degrees an hour is Coriolis effect. If it happened, but it doesn't. Nothing's drifting away 1,000 miles an hour on the equator as we turn underneath it. There is no Coriolis effect on Earth.
Isn't that just because all the things sticking out on the Earth and everything just kind of grip the air lower to the ground so that any typical height we would attain, even with a drone, it would just never get caught up in the actual drift because too much stuff is sticking out and grabbing hold of the air lower at the surface?
Well, that's a lovely question. The globe claims they have drift. So while you're asking me about why you wouldn't have drift, well, we wouldn't have drift because there's no drift. There's no need to explain why we don't have it. The claim is we do, and it proves we spin. Watching things drift away from you at 15 degrees an hour is the claim proof that Earth is turning. So the justification that Arwin's now attempting to give me of why we don't see drift is the end of the argument. We should see drift at 15 degrees an hour because Earth's claimed to turn underneath an inertial reference frame. Yeah? We don't because there isn't.
But you're just not going high up enough to actually catch this drift.
No, there's no height involved. If you're on a roundabout and you launch a drone, it doesn't matter if you launch the drone an inch above the roundabout or 100 feet above the roundabout. You will still rotate underneath it as the drone hovers. The height has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, it will matter because if you do that drone very close to the roundabout, it's very likely it's going to get caught in the roundabout and then be moved with it.
Caught in the roundabout?
If there was a box on the roundabout and you would let the drone go inside of the box, it's just going to move and stay in the box.
So no drift
even though
then?
it's spinning on the roundabout.
Okay. If that was the case, you're detailing an example that doesn't have any drift.
Exactly.
Well, you're supposed to have drift on a globe Earth that spins at 15 degrees an hour. So fascinating
Yeah,
though
but
it is
the
to detail
roundabout is
examples.
still spinning though.
Yeah. It's
No
great
drift.
to get... Look, I could spend all day with examples that you're giving me, or even Simon Dan's examples where he shows a man trampolining and not drifting. It's all very fascinating. However, the globe claims that we do have Coriolis effect, and that would be things drifting away. And they even give the rate, 15 degrees an hour. That's what we should have, but don't.
Right, but that only works really high up, and Neil deGrasse Tyson's just wrong.
What Neil deGrasse Tyson's assertion that a globe turned underneath a football to cause a field goal to be made.
Yes, that is totally wrong because the football is not high up enough in order to get caught up in the Coriolis deflection.
How about Felix Baumgartner? Was he high up enough?
Hold on, I've just figured out what Darwin's doing. The ball isn't getting caught up in Coriolis effect. Coriolis effect is you observing something, not what the ball does. It's a not actual deflection. So the ball seems to drift because you're turning underneath it. So I don't know why you're detailing the ball and it getting caught up in something, because that's nothing to do with Coriolis either.
No, it wouldn't get caught up because everything is moving in lockstep very close to the Earth's surface.
So no drift
Everything
then.
higher up will be deflected, as you say it would.
So no drift.
So no drift then.
Not very close to the Earth's surface, no drift.
All right,
Unless you're in the desert, maybe. Then I
okay,
have no
that's
excuse.
nice that you can make that claim. However, they claim there is drift on a globe. Now, the fact is we don't see it, and you're justifying why we don't see it is irrelevant. We're supposed to see it. There's supposed to be 15 degrees an hour drift, and there is not.
Arwin, can I
There
ask you a
is.
question?
It's just
Arwin,
not on the surface of the Earth.
Arwin, if a young child is outside flying his kite 50 feet above the Earth's surface, is it the wind or is it the Earth moving that's causing the tension on the string with the kite?
It's the air pressure differential.
Not Earth turning underneath then. Okay, fine. Even still. They're supposed to have Coriolis effect. They claim they have Coriolis effect. There is no Coriolis effect. But there would be if Earth was turning. It's not. We're stationary. If we were turning, we would have Coriolis as they claim we do.
But maybe we do, it's just not really close to the Earth's surface. It's getting caught up in the roundabout.
I'm gonna have to do it to you, Armin.
Can I
Thank
have
God.
a citation that says the globe claims Coriolis?
Yeah. I don't need to cite that globe claims Coriolis chocolate. That's an affirmative right there. You don't need me to cite their claim that Earth has Coriolis.
Even if I was trying to explain that same claim in an experiment?
Even if you were actually claiming it and had it debunked, yeah, I still wouldn't need to then have the tables turned with the burden of proof reversal fallacy that meant I had to justify the claim that I just debunked on a side I'm not fighting for. That's right, chocolate.
This is where the term comes in. We wouldn't expect to see and add anything you want on the globe side because they can't prove anything.
Yeah, make a claim about how you'd expect to see a physical Earth curve, have it debunked by a flat earther, and then declare thereafter that you wouldn't expect to see a horizon being physical. Or in this case, declare that you see 15 degrees an hour drift because we have Earth-based Coriolis effect. And then when a flat earther points out that there isn't any Earth-based Coriolis effect, declare that we wouldn't expect to see drift, and justify how we wouldn't expect to see drift. That's what they do. Go on, Ram, save us from this, please.
How about the ISS?
I was just going to say, if the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, that should be a pretty 1,000 mile an hour westerly, wouldn't there?
Yeah, basically.
Constantly?
Well, you'd launch your drone and it would drift away 1,000 miles an hour, which you could perceive as a westerly wind, but it would actually be the drone hovering and you turning underneath it.
Yeah.
But yeah, your drone would drift away at 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. Not because it's got 1,000 miles an hour capabilities in its little tiny motors, but because it's claimed Earth turns underneath it, so it wouldn't need any energy, it'd just hover. And you go, oh no, it's drifting away 1,000 miles an hour, bye-bye drone! Does that ever happen? No.
Even if you threw a tennis ball up in the air, it would just start flying away at 1,000 miles an hour.
That's correct. Well, it wouldn't. It would just go straight up and down. But from your vantage point on the ground, if we have Earth-based Coriolis, you'd see it seeming to take a curved path away from you as you turned underneath it. That's what Coriolis is. The ball goes straight up and down because you've inputted a upward motion and then let go. So it goes up and then down. But as you watched it, if Earth was turning, it would drift away from you at 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. That doesn't happen. And when we point out that that doesn't happen, hear them cry we wouldn't expect to see drift. The thing they're claiming prove Earth spins.
Or they'll just tell us how we only see it in the geometry or in the apparatus of the experiment. But something that we're supposed to see everywhere, it's funny that we don't see it anywhere.
Yeah, but chocolate,
That's a little crazy.
Chocolate, it works in the geometry. It works in the maths.
Ah, that sounds very familiar, huh? What was it? What was the other thing that was only in the math? Was that the geometric horizon?
Correct. That's correct. The geometric horizon, and I quote, "The geometric horizon only exists in the maths." End quote. The rumpus.
And what a quote it was.
Getting a little familiar there, huh? Hearing it from more arguments again and again. All the claims are only exist in math. Well, math isn't reality, so.
But chocolate.
Rumpus is a flat earther. He just doesn't realize it.
Chocolate, we must embrace the fiction in our science.
Embrace the fiction in our science. Yes, very good quote, man.
I think I've just realised
that makes sense, right?
I think I've realised.
Yeah, embrace the fiction in your science. So make science fiction real.
Exactly. That's what the problem is. That's why we have such limited opposition from the globe side. We've made it abundantly clear that we are only interested in the physical and natural world. That's exclusively dealt with physics. And we've told them that we're not interested in dealing with abstract maths. So they've obviously taken this to heart because they don't come anymore. Well, why? Well, because they don't have any physics. They only have maths, and this is not a maths forum. On the flat earth side, we're dealing with physics, physical reality, the nature of our existence. On the globe side, they've only got reifications and abstract maths. So they're not welcome here, and they damn well know it. They're not going to get away with using maths in a physics forum.
You mean we focus on that really is level that George Musser so exquisitely differentiated between the crap he was talking about with Fight the Tight Shirt and the real world. That really is level. That's what we focus on, right?
And
Yeah.
physics deals with the physical. That would be the really is level. Retro Bill from the Super Chat says, embrace the fiction, hug a baller today. Thank you very much for the Super Chat, Retro Bill.
What a kind thought.
I'm not hugging
Yeah,
any
I'm not
ballers.
going to do that, though.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that either. Thank you for the Super Chat, though.
But 90% of the Western world is going to miss a hug.
Well, when I say share your pain, that's a step too far as far as I'm concerned, Retro Bill. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No evidence for the distance to the sun.
It's 3 AU away.
1 AU in their model, but I said it was 3 Nathans away.
I meant Arwinian units.
Oh, that AU. My bad, 3 AU. 3 Arwinians. I see. 3, not 1.
Yeah.
In that case, it's one.
It's 3 apparent distances away.
3
In that
apparent.
case,
Hold on. 3 not actual distances. That's so beautifully specific. I love it.
Right. Well, it's extra dimensional thinking. I'm applying the mathematical dimensional thinking to actual reality. So if the sun is just an apparent phenomena, an appearance, and there's all these lack of actuals to it, well, then I would have to systematically approach it as non-actual, applying the systems that we know. So it's going to have an apparent distance away.
well, then it would be 3/10 of 10th man away if it's my channel name.
That's correct. 3/10 of 10th man away is 3 AU, though. I mean, this maths is divisible into each other. You can... What's the word he uses? Boil down, translate. You can translate 10th man maths into Arwinian maths. It's definitely doable.
Right.
How do we get chocolate into it?
Your dietary requirements are your own problem. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
They might, as soon as they figure out what it is. Not what is said that it is, but what it actually is, right? Because there's a lot of things throughout history that have been said about gravity and then accepted through consensus and then disagreed upon. And then other people figured out, no, wait, this is gravity. See, my formula works better. My math works out better. But in all these attempts, people seem to overlook that they are chasing after a thing they're trying to prove, and they yet have to basically figure out a phenomenon in their hypothesis. And they don't even know that they're doing it.
Well, wasn't it Newton saying, don't ascribe this thing gravity to me?
You don't have to worry about any of this. None of it's done on the really is level. Didn't you hear what Chocolate just said?
Yeah, I know, but I was just dovetailing on Arwin because he was saying it changes based on how certain people from certain fields look at it. So I just brought up Newton and his Principia, where he says, don't ascribe this to me at all. So now they, in this realm that we live in, are saying, oh, Newton discovered gravity. But he's saying, no, don't even ascribe it to me. So
Right. And as a reward, everybody that is looking for gravity references him as being an original figuring out of gravity, and he's just old, right? So instead of, well, doing what he said and not accepting him as a founder of gravity, everybody does, and then looks down upon him for being old-fashioned and outdated, as they are trying to conjure forth the gravity that Newton never claimed.
yeah, well, you can't call a dead witness, right?
Yeah, you can't.
Well, you can't call a dead witness, right? 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 Well, you can't call a
Yeah, they do frequently. Absolutely. They divine what he would have done. He would have wanted it that way.
Pretty sure he specifically wrote down on paper that he did not.
We even
Yes,
gave an
I
analogy with
agree. I'll go with the reality of the statement he wrote versus what they divine.
Remember talking about this with
We're
Brian?
forgetting that people like Rumpus have secret meetings with Cavendish and know that, you know, he came up with G, even though he didn't write it, but he knows that he did it.
Exactly.
You know, Rumpus is great.
Exactly. This got discussed with Brian, and Brian gave the example of the Mona Lisa and saying, well, he would have known how to hold the Sharpie. Because we know.
Well, maybe people just think Cavendish proves gravity because it was one of the first magician's tricks to assume gravity within the formula, what it was doing. Maybe that's why they think it proves it.
I thought it was the density of the Earth, Cavendish.
Now, that's the actual supposed hypothesis. I'm just saying that because Cavendish might have been the first thing that in its formula assumed gravity to be there, that's why everybody believes it proved it. Or am I wrong? Are there other
what you're saying is he's the first to beg the
things
question.
that assumed gravity within them?
Yeah. You're
Before
saying
Cavendish.
you're saying he's got the first assumption of gravity within a concept where he's measuring the density of Earth. So therefore, he's got something that they can punt out as an experiment, in quotes, whilst begging the question of gravity. Now, the fact that they later have to just insert it, even though it's CV boys, they just will, and they'll say, "Yeah, he would have done it. He would have wanted it that way." When it's Newton, or Cavendish already knew. He's just measuring it. Well, it's not an experiment then. It's conjured within the test to begin with, but ultimately in the paper, he's begging the question of gravity. And you're saying, well, it's just having an apparatus to be able to enable them to beg the question.
Wasn't there a third member of this Cavendish CV Boys group?
Reverend John Michel.
What was his part?
He and Cavendish came up with the apparatus, did they not?
Yeah, John Michel supposedly built the apparatus for him.
But geez, CV boys.
Yeah, so where's Newton's name?
Newton doesn't even come into it. We've covered this, right? He doesn't even come into it. What they call Newtonian gravity is Reverend John Michel, CV Boys, or Charles Vernon Boys, and Cavendish. That's what is commonly referred to as Newtonian gravity.
Well, that's very nice of them to borrow a famous person's name and attach their nonsense to him and gain some kind of pedestal over everybody.
Yeah.
Especially considering he didn't want to be associated with it.
Worst thing you can do. Don't, for the love of God, don't associate this nonsense of gravity to me. I think we'll call it Newtonian. They're just bastards, aren't they?
Yeah.
To the Newtonian gravity versus Einsteinian gravity argument, the ballers I was speaking to the other day were saying that they're both accurate and that it's just a matter of what type of measurements and what type of accuracy you want, that they're both valid and that they both work.
Yeah, it's just simply not true, though. One asserts that mass is attracting mass. The other can't even calculate that because it can only cope with one mass at a time. So you're going to account for two of them attracting one another. Well, you can't. So how can you possibly assert that both work when you literally cannot do one with the other because they're in completely different geometries? They don't work. They're not interchangeable. They're completely different things. One is a force. The other is literally not a force. Quote, end quote, George Musa. So no, they're not the same.
Well, they got both sides.
Yeah, but like all these guys cared about
force.
was what applications are they useful for, for measuring things and doing things as they do. And, they find some uses in it. And so that's all they care about.
That's lovely.
Yeah, it's crazy.
If one's a force and one's not a force, that's a classic Violation of the law of non-contradiction. So how can they work if they hold both positions?
They don't. One is a force that doesn't actually occur in nature. Yeah, you can violate that with a helium balloon. What'd you say? Down at 9.8 meters per second per second? No. Watch this go up. Absolutely violating this complete nonsense claim of a law of gravity. No, there isn't. So what do they do to solve that little problem? Well, they push it into a world that doesn't even exist. They push it into the pseudo world of bending space-time. A world that you can't experience and that does not exist. That only exists in the maths.
Great escape.
And then somebody like Rumpus will come by and tell us, yeah, we can only account for things like, I don't know, the orbit of Mercury in a 4D world. No clue as to how the hell to get there, so we can calculate whatever the hell he's talking about. But yeah, that's where we calculate the orbit of Mercury. But we can't account for that in the 3D world that we actually live in, so I guess we just gotta keep working on that. Thanks, Rumpus.
Hey, Paul.
Hello. Are things moving in our reality or are they standing still? I was wondering.
Depends what you're talking about. Generally, things can move in our reality, yes.
But didn't they say in the 4D world nothing can be moving around to calculate anything?
Relative to a single position, I suppose you're right, yeah.
Where that world be at?
For the 4D world, yes.
How do I find that world?
Yeah. How do you exist in that world?
We don't. Didn't I just cover that? We don't live in a 4D pseudo world.
Cool.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
iTunes.
Why does iTunes and email keep coming up every time I ask this question?
4D world.
Because I'm becking the question.
Ha ha. Backing, of course. Tough man.
Back to the problem we identified earlier, right? How are you going to come up with a viable hypothesis of any description if you're working in a maths world that doesn't exist? You're not. Hence the absence of any response whatsoever from the globe side in this respect. They don't have any science.
Maybe Adam could help us since it's a math question.
Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Help you with what? I literally just arrived.
It's not a math question. It's a hypotheses question. Any viable ones from science that they claim they have?
Are we on astrophysics? Astrophysics here.
Yeah.
I mean, they could, but it would require them to be manipulating the things that they can't reach. But if they could get there, then it's not like the whole concept has no chance of ever having science. It's just the way they approach it and the assumptions they make. I mean, they could never going to do it with the limitations they have now. That's been so generous.
It is being generous, but you're absolutely right. If you take a phenomena of some light changing in some way, that's definitely a dependent variable, right? That's a phenomena.
Yeah.
Well, they've got tons of those. In fact, they're stacked to the gills with observable phenomena. Or why can't they start the process by saying this observed phenomena was caused by this? And then that's the problem, right? When they get to we'll vary it because normally their cause of it is something just so it's normally in imagination land what's caused it, right? Gravity being one of them.
It's funny you say that, right? Because it's true. They got dependent variables out the wazoo. They got natural phenomenon all day. But whenever they try to claim something that maybe they can manipulate to have cause in an experiment, it's usually something we don't see. Something conjured up.
But what if they're trying to answer a what is question?
That's not science.
That's correct. What is questions often get identified incorrectly as science as opposed to actual science, which deals with cause and effect.
They do it in the math, Chocolate. That's how they do it.
It's unfortunate that math isn't science. So, yeah.
And that's what they've got to recognise. I mean, I know we've covered this, like, you know, they don't have any science and we ask them for science, etc., etc. But up until now, has it been identified that that is the crux of the problem here? That the heliocentric world is based in a mathematical reification, and the way it falls apart is by simply looking at the real world. That's really what this boils down to. Abstract world, that's heliocentrism based on maths, or real world, that's flat, stationary.
I heard something the other day about it's kind of like the way these guys are thinking, and it was talking about somebody wanting us to provide a model, blah blah blah, but they're justifying their models that it's true because, and it has to be true, the model, because if you put a question to the model, a prediction question, and it gives you the right answer, or the answer matches up with reality, it means the model is correct. Which is so many big leaps of nonsense. Do you know what I mean? Just because you've got the right answer doesn't mean it's explained correctly, even whether the maths is correct or anything. But I found that quite an interesting concept that there was a baller that made that actually as a positive statement, that if we have a model and we ask it to predict something and the prediction comes back correct, that proves that the model represents reality, and that is full of so many holes. It's a Swiss cheese.
Well, it's the standard fare, actually. It's the begging the question, affirming the consequent form of logical fallacy. So if Earth is a sphere, then my model will predict physical Earth curve edge horizons. My model predicts physical Earth curve edge horizons, therefore the Earth's a sphere. So if P, you're begging the question, starting statement, is if Earth a sphere, then Q, model, that's not Earth a sphere, that's a model of a sphere. Model will make prediction. In this case, an assumption of an Earth curve edge at the horizon. And what do you know? It predicts the Earth curve edges the horizon. Therefore, my model is Earth. If P, then Q. P, Earth a sphere. Q, my model. Q, my model. Therefore, P, my Earth is a sphere. Affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy with a begging the question thrown in for good measure.
It sounds a bit like Dr. Becky science, doesn't it? I think if he was to put that in an email, that's her next PhD done.
Send it off, and then if technology, then people clever, therefore Earth a sphere.
There's the junk mail too, so there's a drawback.
Indeed. Did we have distance to the sun already? Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Yeah, you said that one already.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
I was in the car when you asked that question, and I have to say, I've noticed that both Nathan's and Arwinian units are, well, they're equivalent to the same amount of arbitrary distance by the sound of things. It's both 3 Nathans and 3 AUs to the sun.
Yeah, and technically...
A bit like Celsius and centigrade, you two, then.
Don't forget 3/10.
I was going to say it's 3/10 of a unit also. So technically all 3 of them are the same thing. I suppose you're right. I mean, that kind of correlation doesn't come easy now, does it? I mean, I'm pretty sure that this correlation affirms precisely what we've made up. Does it not?
It works. It works in the math, Nathan. Come on.
It doesn't just work in one set of maths. I mean, we've just got the mother of all correlations here. It's not only Nathan units, not only Arwinian units, but if it's 3/10 of a 10th man, then these were pretty much the same. Therefore, this is definitely a correlation. And therefore, I think we can declare this correlation as proof.
Fact.
This validates.
And
I think we got a consensus here.
yes, and if it's 3/10 of a 10th man, we're out on a limb.
Oh.
Indeed. Lots of correlative maths equals proof, does it not? It does if you're a sphere-believing fundy and you've got a load of mathematics that beg the question. Confirm the consequent. Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius? Go on, Rams.
I was just going to say, I think they're so impressed by their own maths and the structures they build with it that they just don't want it taken away from them. That's where they get their sense of intelligence and self-worth.
Yeah, because people like us, we go outside, we look at the moon, and we're like, wow, that's beautiful, right? These guys, they're looking at a giant blackboard filled with equations, and they look at that the same way, like, oh my God, it's beautiful, the equations. Look at the numbers. It's ridiculous. Imagine that being your reality. Sad state of affairs.
Yeah, makes them feel smart. And in the community, I've heard actually that there's actually a lot of ego and a lot of competition amongst them.
What, to know the most just so stories?
But to be fair,
What's
it is
crazy
kind of
is they're
Yeah, to make
okay
up
with
to
not
make up the
having-
most fantastic and
I'm sorry.
amazing mathematical models.
I
Well,
see.
it is kind of smart. It's just not very wise. You know,
What
they
I
have the
find
smarts
crazy
to
is
figure
though,
it out, to play around, but they don't have the wisdom to realize that it's just a mechanical tool. It doesn't actually prove anything.
Meaningless
That's
too,
the part
yeah.
that they overlook. That's where their wisdom fails them.
but it's almost like the intelligence of somebody else that impresses them, right? Because some of them will say, well, I don't care. I don't need to know how to do that equation. I don't need to know how to figure out the curve of the earth. Somebody smarter than me has already done it. Therefore, I'm free to go. I'm sure my days, I'm good to go to the beach because I don't have to figure anything out. Somebody else did it for me. I can't stand when people tell me that shit. Somebody else figured out it's a goal. I don't have to think. What do I
Smarter
have to think
people
for?
than you have figured it out already, Chocolate. Yeah.
I know, man. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
they're
don't
better
know,
at math than you. They're better at math than you, so they're better than you. They know it more because they know more math. And math is where the proof is at to them.
Oh, shit. Oh, if that's your really is level on a blackboard, then sad for you.
Well, Chocolate, the shore truth is at the beach, not at the blackboard.
Are you sure?
I am sure.
Terrible. Last but by no means least, before we move on to BMLS B69's latest video, any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container?
With two containers.
3. You're always standing in one. So there's always going to be one container. And whenever you're going to demonstrate, it would be good to actually show some kind of visual so people understand that there is some kind of container involved. But for that, you have to have at least 2 containers. Now, if you want to try to demonstrate what it would be like to not have a container for something, you'll need at least 3 containers, the one you're standing in, and 2 containers to show that there is some kind of interaction between the containers. Otherwise, people will just not see it.
Perfect.
And there wouldn't be people.
I'm going to give a quick plug to this video. I've just stuck a link to this video from BMLSB69 in the chat. So go and click on it, go and subscribe to him, give him a thumbs up. This video is about parallax, and what he's demonstrating with the on-screen visuals right now is that things in the foreground will move at a quicker rate than things in the background. Things further in the background will move at an even slower rate. Sorry for my text pushing it slightly off screen. Anywho, we don't have any parallax throughout the night with the stars or the moon or anything. They're all moving perfectly in sync with absolutely no demonstrable parallax, completely annihilating the assertion that we have these various different lights in the sky at differing distances, moving through the motion depicted on screen now. This corkscrew spiraling of us moving around the sun as the sun moves around the great attractor. This whole nonsense would have parallax, and there isn't any.
Nathan? Nathan?
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Sure, feel free.
The thing with the parallax is all stars are moving at the seemingly same speed, because not the stars are rotating. Of course, the stars are also moving, but the Earth is rotating at the same speed. That's why all stars move at the same speed, and there's no parallax.
No, parallax would be based
Ah.
on their differing distances, as depicted in this video. You've got something that's close to you moving faster than something that's further away. So if they're at differing distances, there would be parallax, because they're at differing distances. Not all at the same speed. That's anti-parallax, no parallax. But if they're at different distances, they'd move at different speeds throughout the night, and there'd be parallax. There isn't.
It's just the same as with
Nathan, of course.
the Coriolis deflection.
Sorry.
Don't see any.
Yeah, this is the same dude that doesn't seem to think that Earth turns underneath stuff. Yeah, dude. Why do the stars move? Is it because Earth's turning underneath them? Something that you didn't like the phrasing of yesterday.
Because it's not true, but it doesn't matter.
Sorry, why are the stars moving?
of course,
It's not
moving.
true. Let's get some clarity before we move to the after show. So Earth isn't turning under the stars. You've just literally 3 minutes ago said that it's only because
No,
Earth... Shut up! Shut up!
Coriolis.
Shh! Why are you doing that? Only 3 minutes ago, you declared that the stars move because Earth's turning under them. Now, yesterday, you told me you objected to that phraseology, yet you very specifically told us Earth's turning under these stars. Now, there's no parallax, and if there were differing distances, as is declared in the heliocentric model, there would be, and there isn't. Nevertheless, someone who objected and demanded that I cite your claim that Earth turns underneath stuff has now boldly declared that Earth turns under the stars, right, mate?
Nathan, I was talking about Coriolis. I'm saying not the Earth is rotating beneath the objects. That's not what Coriolis
So
is.
Earth
About
isn't
the
turning
stars,
under the
Earth
stars.
is rotating.
So Earth isn't
Can I
rotating
say,
under stars then?
complete phrase?
Sorry, Earth isn't rotating under stars then?
It is. Oh wait. Oh goddamn. Wait. Okay. Let me do my phrase. So the stars are of course moving, but they are so far away that we can't see this movement like in one night. That's why we can refer to them as standing still. They're not.
No, that would be a nonsense claim that would fly in the face of them being differing distances because they'd have parallax. Simply saying because they're very far we wouldn't have parallax is flying in the face of what parallax actually is. Doesn't change the fact
But if
that you're
Earth is
asserting...
rotating.
Hello, I'm still talking. It doesn't change the fact that you're asserting Earth turns under them to make them look like they're moving. That's Coriolis
The
effect.
same effect.
Yeah, that's Coriolis
The
effect,
stars
mate.
are moving, or
Yeah,
the
that's
Earth is rotating
Coriolis
beneath them.
effect.
But parallax.
Hello? That's Coriolis effect.
What?
What do you mean, whatever? You spent yesterday objecting and asking me to cite your claim that Earth turns underneath stuff. Yeah? When I pointed out that it doesn't, you demanded that I cite this crap you claim. Now here you are again claiming Earth turns under stars, and it's whatever. No, mate. You think Earth turns underneath stuff at 15 degrees an hour. Yet when I point out that it doesn't, you tell me you don't like the phraseology. And then come back the next day to tell me how Earth turns under stars. Do you see the problem? That's Coriolis effect, you clown.
No, I'm saying the Earth.
Yes! Not no. Yeah, that is Coriolis effect, you complete clown. How many times have I got to educate these idiots in what they're actually claiming? Yes, Earth turning underneath to cause a not actual deflection in the stars. That's Coriolis effect, you stupid idiot.
Coriolis effect is not Earth rotating beneath something. Okay.
No, Earth doesn't rotate underneath anything, but that's what Coriolis is. You rotating underneath stuff not attached is Coriolis. It's claimed Earth has that effect, and you seem to be telling me that's not Earth having that effect. Yeah, we don't have that effect, nothing's drifting.
That's
We've established
not
that.
Coriolis. You're talking about something else, but this is definitely not Coriolis.
Is it not? So, one rotating platform as a non-inertial spinning reference frame, turning underneath an inertial reference frame to give you not actual deflection, that's not Coriolis effect.
I think this is a Globiolus believer here.
I think it's a clown that's having to be told what Coriolis effect is while he simultaneously denies the effect that he's here to claim. He's saying Earth turns under the stars, right? That's Earth turning under something. Stars in this example, balls yesterday. But when I point out that's not what's actually occurring, in this example, because we haven't got any parallax, yesterday's example, because you couldn't literally give me a single naturally occurring example of anything drifting ever, Yet you simultaneously want to claim Earth's turning underneath stuff, and then deny that it's Coriolis and claim I don't understand it. No, my friend. You do not understand A, what you're claiming, or B, what Coriolis even is. You haven't got a clue what the effect is. You don't know what Earth's supposed to do. You claim it has drift and then claim it's not Earth turning underneath. You claim I should be citing that Earth turns underneath stuff. And then you've come back today to tell me that the Earth's turning under stars.
Look, I can tell you exactly what Coriolis is if you want to.
I don't need you to tell me what Coriolis is, you clown. I had to educate you in the difference between science and maths, what the scientific method entailed, and now I've just detailed what Coriolis effect is, and you think I need you to repeat a different version? I know what Coriolis is.
But can you prove that you're not talking anything? I can prove that I'm saying the right thing.
Can I prove that I'm not talking anything? Yeah, we've descended into total and utter gibberish from a clown that doesn't know what his own claim is. Yesterday, when I pointed out that we don't have anything drifting away naturally on Earth at all, he asked me to cite a claim that says they do, and now he's here telling me Earth turns underneath stars. Exactly what he unreasonably demanded I prove to him is his claim. He's now here claiming it again, and yet what, denying that he claims Earth turns under stars, precisely as he claimed about 5 minutes ago? These people are in so much cognitive dissonance, it's untrue. With that, I'll say if you're watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Stream, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. I think somebody actually smashed the super chat just before the start of that little discussion, so shout out to James Richard. It seems like somebody is getting a good old-fashioned flack smacking. Indeed they are. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering Stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!